Hey everyone, welcome back and thank you for tuning in. In today's video, as you see in the title, I'm going to be talking about my time managing the Empire State Building and what I learned from it. In the last video, I talked about how I worked for another company, another large landlord in New York City called Vornado, starting off as a tenant services coordinator, which is the entry level to get into property management. And I was selling real estate on the side, or at least trying to sell real estate. So if you haven't seen that video, go back and check that out, see what happened with those two listings that I had listed while I was at Vornado. And also at the end of that video, I remember I told you how I was getting ready to get another listing. And this was at the same time that I was offered this position at this new company. The new company that I was offered a position at is called Empire State Realty Trust, and they own the Empire State Building. The way that I got my foot in the door there was my uncle, who was a VP at Vornado, one of the VPs at Empire State Realty Trust used to work for him. And my uncle referred me over to him, sent him my resume. And I also knew someone at the Empire State Building, so I sent them my resume as well. So both of them, they put in a good word for me, and I was able to get an interview. I did well in the interview, and then I was offered the position. Now, before I talk about the position that I got at Empire State Realty Trust, let me just back up a little bit and talk briefly about the listing that I told you I got towards the end of working at Vornado. Long story short, the listing didn't sell. It was another overpriced listing that I took from a seller, and it just wasn't willing to budge much from the asking price. I knew when I took it that it was a little overpriced, but my goal was to either actually hit the price, hopefully I'd get lucky, I'd find someone who would see the value in the building to pay more than, what market was, or if he became a little more motivated to take where the market is or maybe a little more. I was hoping one of those two things would happen, but they didn't. But, there were no hard feelings when I walked away. Actually, every listing that I had that didn't sell, the owners, they knew and they saw how hard I worked on getting them done, trying to get them done for them. So them seeing that and me communicating everything, me bringing in offers, showing them where the market is, they respected that, and we kept a good relationship. We still have a good relationship now. And when they're ready to sell and actually ready to sell and take where the market is, or maybe a little more, if we can negotiate those offers a little higher than market, I'll be here, and more likely than not, they'll hire me. Going back to the story, I was offered the position. It was a new position for the company. They never had this. And what it was is a junior assistant property manager position. So remember in the last video, I told you the different tiers. Entry level is tenant services coordinator, second is assistant property manager, and third is property manager. After a year of being in that entry level position, I wanted to move up. I know that, some people, it takes years. Some people spend 5 years or more in that entry level position before they move to the assistant property manager position. But I'm impatient. I want to improve quicker than that. And, if I feel stuck in a position, that's just what I do. So in this new junior assistant property manager position, I would be similar to Vornado, starting out in a building, just learning the ropes from the property manager and the assistant property manager, doing that kind of work, so that eventually I could move into my own position, being an assistant property manager. So I started in one building, learned that well, and then I started going to some of the other buildings in the portfolio, because Empire State Realty Trust, they don't just own the Empire State Building, they also own other offices office buildings throughout the city. So I started working in all of those, working with property managers and assistant property managers in those buildings. And after about 6 months, something happened. Let me back up a little bit. When I first started, I don't think it was in the actual interview, but maybe it was pretty early on. I told them that I wanted to ultimately end up working at the Empire State Building. I wanted to put that on the table. I wanted them to know my goal so that they would help me get there. And if anything, opened up there, I wanted me to be the first one that they thought of. So after about 6 months of working as a junior assistant property manager, they sent me over to the Empire State Building for what I call tryouts. The reason they did that was because one of the assistant directors, he was going to be leaving the building to go and take over another building in the portfolio. So they needed someone to fill that position. And Empire State Realty Trust, they like to hire from within. So they saw me working hard and doing well in the other buildings, and they knew that I wanted to be at the Empire State Building. So I was the first person they thought of, and they brought me over. After about 3 months of tryouts, the assistant director, he left, and I was offered the position, like the actual position full-time at 26 years old. I think I was the youngest person to ever get that position, and I was so excited. I was so happy, and I don't know, like that is my favorite building in the world, and I got a position to help manage it. So I was very happy about that. My favorite thing about working at the building was dealing with the tenants. We had about 170 tenants in the building, and my job was to constantly be meeting with them, checking in on them, seeing how they're doing, how they like the building, how they like me and my team, and just to also see what issues that they have that they need fixed. Some of the tenants in the building, they were smaller ones who just took smaller office spaces throughout the building, while other tenants, they were large ones who either took a floor, 2 floors, or even more, like multiple floors in the building. LinkedIn, they were actually, and I think they still are, the largest tenant in the building. And they were my favorite space too. It was like an indoor campus. On one of the floors, they built out a cafeteria. And it was on one of the floors that had the largest floor plates in the building. And this cafeteria, it was a really nice one, like not like in your high school, middle school, or whatever, but like a really nice high-end cafeteria. And they served meals and snacks all throughout the day. It was good food. And, you know, me, I like to eat. So of course that was probably my favorite part about their space. But not only that, they had other amenities like a massage room, a theater room, just trying to remember everything that they had, a yoga room. They even had a speakeasy bar, and I don't know, it was just crazy. Like every floor, they had something different. But going back to just meeting with tenants, trying to see what they needed, most of the time when I met with tenants, they had an issue that needed to be solved. So that was part of the reason why, you know, dealing with the tenants was my favorite thing, because I like meeting new people, but also like solving problems. And at the Empire State Building, we employed hundreds of trade staff. So whatever issue that the tenant needed, we were usually able to go to our staff to have them do it. Among the trade staff, there were carpenters, painters, cleaners, security, just different people, you name it. They were all employed there. So most of the things we were able to handle in-house. So when I called staff to address an issue, I would make sure the issue gets done, that it was done properly, and then I would communicate that to the tenant. And if it was a long process of addressing their issue, throughout that whole process, I always just had to stay in communication with them. In addition to dealing with the in-house staff, I also dealt with outside vendors, because some of the jobs that needed to be done, they were either too big or we just didn't have that trade in the building. Some of the work that they did included maintaining and repairing the doors throughout the building, the windows, all the metal and marble that you see throughout the building. You know, we had vendors take care of that stuff. We also had a vendor for the ceiling in the lobby, because the ceiling was a special material. It's like a gold leaf and a silver leaf material that the vendor, you know, it's a highly specialized trade. The vendor who does it, they do it all around the world, just maintaining and repairing this special material for ceilings. Other vendors that we used in the building were consultants. So for example, I was in charge of clearing the violations on the building, and I used a team of consultants to help me understand what the violations were and to actually help me get them cleared. One of my other favorite things about managing the Empire State Building was dealing with the office build-outs or any other build-out that was happening in the building. Some of the office build-outs, they were just simple build-outs, while other build-outs were for certain tenants and they wanted them customized, like LinkedIn, for example. And actually my most memorable and my favorite build out was the Observatory Entrance. My first time visiting the observatory was back in 2013 after I graduated college. And when I went up to the roof deck and just looking out at the city, I remember it was such a cool feeling. It was crazy. And to go from that to being a part of a project to improve that was really, it was amazing to me to watch that, to watch the space go from just a raw space, seeing the progress of the construction, to seeing the finished product, walking it while no one is there, before it even opened up, to pretty much do a test run and see, what can be improved, and just to experience it before it opened up to the public. That was really cool. And knowing that millions of people would be going through that, it was a good feeling to be a part of that project. After that project was done, I made a hard decision, kind of a hard decision. I decided to leave the Empire State Building. The reason I decided to leave was because I wanted to get back into selling real estate full time. While I was at the building working there, I was trying to sell real estate part-time on the side, but it was really hard, almost impossible to do that with such a demanding building. So I knew that in order to really be successful in selling real estate, I had to leave. It was bittersweet leaving the Empire State Building. It's my favorite building in the world. Even before I even started working at the building, it was my favorite. And just knowing that I had that opportunity to, at such a young age too, to go in and just be a part of the day-to-day operations. Like, I was immersed in it. Every day I was there, just working on everything. I knew of everything happening in the building. I was building relationships with the tenants and with my team, and with all the staff. And I was learning a lot. Like, I'm really grateful for the opportunity because I learned so much. I even learned things that would help me with brokerage. I improved on my communication skills. I improved on my time management. You gotta have really good time management there. And I even learned things that would help landlords that I'm giving advice to, how to clear their violations, or how to bid out a construction job if they haven't done that before. Just different things that I learned there. I'm able to share that knowledge now. And even with you guys, I can make videos that go more in depth on how to do certain things. Or you can reach out to me and just ask me how to do certain things. I'm always happy to help people. Although I was sad about leaving the building, I was really excited for what I was going to be doing next. Getting back into real estate full time, that is a part of my goal, my big dream. I want to be one of the best real estate agents in New York City, doing a really good job for my clients, building that real estate business out, and even owning my own buildings here. And I knew I couldn't do that if I was if I was at the Empire State Building. So at the end of September 2018, I left. That was my last day, and I got back into what I wanted to do, which is selling real estate full time in New York City. And that's what I'm going to share with you guys in my next video. I'll talk more about that. So stay tuned.